Hallelujah. Glory to God. There's a miracle that happened while we were worshiping. A bench and this chocolates appeared. So some of you would have been so into worship. You can probably turn it down slightly, Brian, because I'm on the verge of feedback and I'm not talking loud yet. So some of you are probably worshiping and you open your eyes and there it was. Others you probably watched it happen and was wondering what was going on. I don't know about you, but I love words. Have you noticed that? I love words. I love the power of words. I like to craft them. If you only knew how much I sit there trying to think of a line to make it right. Scott would know, Charlene would know. I'll come by their office and be like, should I say it like this? Does this make sense? And so I really think words are important. They're powerful. They can lift someone up, but they could also tear someone down. They can give hope. They can install fear. They can speak love, they can speak hate. They can help people, they can help society, or they can hurt society or hurt people. You can use them for good or you can use them for evil or wrong. And it doesn't take a lot for words to be impactful, right? So for instance, I like words, but even the word is actually means something now. So someone's like, man, that was a great service. And you're like, word. Right? Like it's an actual, it means something. The word means something. Man, that was so great. Word. Bro. That's another one that teens are using again. I'm sure it was around when I was younger, but now, what's bro? Hey, bro. Words, they're powerful. They mean something. Bro doesn't mean as much as teens you think it means. Just makes you sound silly. At least that's my opinion. So we started one. I was like, well, that's very gender specific, bro. So now we say gal. Anyways, that's the way I think. So now we're being equal, bro and gal, and then you can use it all. Oh, gal, because it was dude before. Anyways, words. Words that are spoken maybe many years ago. Maybe you weren't even alive, but you've heard some words or quotes or statements can have an impact today. Words have helped shape history. Words have helped shape your Christianity. Your Christian upbringing. Words also tell stories. They're a part of entertainment. They're a part of movies. Maybe words that kids or teachers said to you at school, you may remember them today, particularly if they were hurtful. Right? Kids or teachers or maybe parents or guardians, they said some stuff, and you remember them today because, whether it was good, but particularly if they were hurtful, they impacted you. Words have power many years later, and you can still remember when they were said, who said them, why they were said, and how they made you feel, right? If they were impactful. And so we're going to go through a few things, and I'm going to say some words or some quotes that are famous in history. I'm going to start with history, then I'm going to do the church, and then I'm going to do movies, and I'm going to see if you guys know them. You might not have actually been alive during some of this. I wasn't alive for all these, but I've heard of them, and I think I know them. So here's some words that they're powerful. Here's one. Some of you may know this. You can shout it out if you know who said this. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Who remembers who said that? JFK. John F. Kennedy, at his inauguration speech in like 1960-something, 61. Right? I wasn't there, but I remember hearing about it. I don't know if I for sure knew it was JFK. I actually thought it was some wartime speech, but I liked it because I want to be like, ask not what your church can do for you, ask what you can do for your... Yeah, anyways, you get it. How about this one? Even I think, even if you were alive, of all ages, you should know this. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Astronaut, Neil Armstrong, 1969. How about this one? I have a dream. That one might be a little... Oh, okay. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream. This one's a little more current. Fake news. I don't want to get fake news. Whether you believe it or not, that was something you know exactly, Donald Trump, right? You know that was being said. I'll get off that one quickly. But even this, COVID-19, that didn't mean something 3 years ago. It means something now. So that's history. How about in church? If you've grown up in the church at all, maybe not. Maybe you've heard some of these statements. Maybe you've just been, somebody's been sharing. But here's one. You probably know who said this one. Peace be still. Jesus, in a boat, sleeping. And the waves come and the disciples panic and he stands up and says, peace be still. See, you know when it was said, why it was said. You maybe even remember a story at children's church or sometime of it being said. Here's another one for church. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Where was that said? On the cross. I don't know. I think Bob got it wrong because he laughed, but maybe he didn't. In the Bible, yes, that's... So Bob, in his defense, used to join us a lot for LTI, if you remember, Lifeway Training Institute, and the answer to everything was Jesus, love, and the Bible, if they didn't know, right? So you're pretty safe, Jesus, love, the Bible, then you're probably in there. How about this one? Let my people go. Moses, on behalf of God, to Pharaoh. Lazarus, come forth. That's an easy one. Jesus to Lazarus. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. When did it happen? Do you remember? When he's being baptized by John the Baptist. I hope I'm right. I didn't look these up. I'm just going from memory. And God had said, this is my son, and he came up. This one's a little trickier because I couldn't say, because the quote actually says who said it, but then that would make it obvious. But behold, it was very good. There you go. Well done. Boy, it's God when he created the world. It says, and God said, behold, it was very good, but I couldn't say that. But God at creation. So there's some church stuff. How about movie lines? Are you ready for movies? Yeah. So I need to say this. You know when you're watching an infomercial, and then they have that little fast talking thing at the end? This one, like, right? I'm going to do this here. Ready for this? Yeah. All movies mentioned are not fully endorsed by City Center Church, and as such are not necessarily recommended watching. So, listen, I have not watched all these. These are just quotes I might have heard of, and I kind of know the movie from them. So just because Pastor Derek is mentioning the movie, please don't go search everything about it. This isn't my full approval of all these movies, all right? Okay. We good? Yeah. All right, here's the first one. I think all of you know this. I'll be back. Murray had no idea. I'll be back. Terminator, anyone? Well, definitely you. She's definitely jacked up for the movie lines here. Wasn't quite as loud in the other two, but movies, yeah, right? How about this one? And maybe if you get this one, we'll let you be a little quieter so other people can get it before you do, but here it is. And I think this is how it goes. Adrian! Rocky? Right? That's how I remember it. How about this one might be a little trickier. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Who was that? Is that right? You gladiator? Any gladiator people? Russell Crowe? Oh, a little less, a little less. This one I think might get a lot of people. Show me the money. WWE? What was that? Jerry Maguire. Again, this is an old movie. Does anyone know that line? Show me the money. Oh, I'm aging myself. Only a few of us. This one might appeal to maybe Murray. You'll know this one. Here's looking at you, kid. I don't even know how to say it. Humphrey Bogart in? I think it is. Here's looking at you, kid. Who? Was that my dad? Who said it? Casablanca, right? That was before my time, but I've heard that line before. This one, it should be obvious. Toto, I've got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Some of you are like, Toto, I've got a feeling we're not in a normal church anymore. Hey, you want to click your heels and go back? Oh, may the force be with you. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Me 2 weeks ago at church, that was me. No, it wasn't. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Come on, that's an epic line. Few good men. Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise in the scene in the courtroom, right? How about this? This one takes me way back. I don't remember when I saw this last, but if you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams. Remember the corn? I remember them coming through, and if they build a baseball stadium, right? That's City Center Church. No, if we build it, they will come. Field of dreams. They redid it? Oh, there. Well, there you go. And then finally, you may be kind of recognizing, shh, 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 shh. Give me a chance to do the voice. Come on. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. My name's Forrest Gump. I love shrimp. No, that was Forrest's friend, right? All this type of shrimp. And now they got a whole restaurant named after it. But here it is. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get. And so you have these words that help shape things. You remember movies, even if you haven't seen the movie, maybe if you haven't been alive during history when it happened. Words are important. And if you forget a word or change a word, it can totally impact the meaning. For instance, if Moses got up and said, "Let my people." No, I wasn't asking you to sing. I'm saying if Moses got up and said, "Let my people," and didn't finish, you'd be like, what? Let my people dance? Let my people cry? Let my people work harder? You know, that was missing a word. It changes everything. How about this? You could switch it and say, ask what your country can do for you. Ask not what you can do for your country. You know, you flip some stuff. It means totally opposite thing. Words are important. Instead of the "Show Me the Money" by Jerry Maguire, maybe it's an Easter one. It's "Show me the bunny." You know, it's a totally different thing. And instead of it could be like, "May the farts be with you." And also with you. You want the tooth? You can't handle the tooth. And then finally, how about this one? Life is a box of chocolates. See, we laugh at the other ones, tooth and all that, and you can understand that, but sometimes we can read this, life is like a box of chocolates, as life is a box of chocolates. Life is, and I'm sure many of you have had a box of chocolates before, right? We just came through Easter, maybe not a box of chocolates. Actually, boxes of chocolates are harder to find than you'd know. And so Forrest says this because you never know what you're going to get. And so sometimes it can be an adventure. I don't know about you if you've had chocolates and they kind of look the same, and so you're tasting it. And maybe life has been like that for you before, where you weren't sure what you're getting. You were hoping for a caramel, a salted caramel, and you got cherry ganache. Ugh. And maybe you thought you were going to get mocha, and you got macadamia. Right? And you weren't expecting to get, you were hoping for white chocolate with hazelnut, and you got white chocolate with coconut. Or maybe it's the other way, depending on what you prefer, right? But it wasn't what you're expecting, and there may be times in your life where you didn't see something coming. We preached on it, where the breath gets knocked out of you, and you're like, wow, life feels like a box of chocolates right now because I was expecting this, or I was thinking this, and I wasn't knowing I was going to get this, but here I'm ending up with this chocolate. And so while life may be like that, we all know life is not literally a box of chocolates. It is way more complex than that. It is way more deep than a box of chocolates. And so if you come up and you took Forrest's thing and it said, life is a box of chocolates, then you're missing a very key word that sometimes we might just gloss over and think, oh, it's no big deal. But it's that word like. Look at your neighbor and say, like. Look at someone else and say, I like you. That has nothing to really do with the Lord like here, but I thought it'd be nice to say. So how many of you can remember way back to elementary school? Some of you have to think forward almost to elementary school. Rory's just barely getting into that. But if you think of elementary school, there was something I think you learned in grade 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there, this word called a simile. Who remembers similes? Some of you just were like, oh, I was trying to forget everything to do with that. A simile. And so the simile is this: a literary device that compares two things in an interesting and vivid way, often using like or as. Thank you, Leah Link. I forgot to say hi to everyone online. Leah Link was answering the questions with movies. Well done getting in there. Shan, thank you for watching. My mother-in-law might still be watching. Thank you for coming. I'll try to interact with you a little bit more. We do appreciate our online people joining in with us. So simile, it's a literary device that compares two things in an interesting and vivid way, often using like or as. We're going to focus on like today. But it compares it in an interesting way. Life is like a box of chocolates. It is not a box of chocolates. And if you miss the like or as, then you may go around telling everyone, life is a box of chocolates. Life is a box of chocolates. And they kind of look at you like, what are you talking about? It is not a box of chocolates. And so we got to know this about the word like. With like, it is a fun comparison. Without like, it is a final outcome. So when you have the word like there, it's a fun comparison, a vivid comparison. But if you take like out, it becomes a final outcome. Life is this. Life is that. Life is this. Man, I'm going to go some places today. I'm excited because I'm going to preach today. Because I can already tell, there's sometimes we in life, and I'm going to get ahead of myself, but we're saying, this is that, this is that, this is what it is, instead of saying it is like that, and there's a big difference between the two. Because one is saying it's similar, it has some likenesses to it, the other is saying this is reality. Okay. So there's a simile that you may have heard of. We heard Forrest Gump doing a simile, but there's another simile that Peter did that we may be familiar with, and he wrote it to 5 different sections of Asia Minor who were being persecuted Christians in Asia Minor who were trying to figure out, how to keep up their willing service to God, and he writes this simile to them. And I think we read it not as a simile, but kind of something else as an outcome, and it's found in 1 Peter 5:8, but I'm going to read the 2 verses before it, 1 Peter 5:6. 1 Peter 5:7. These 2 verses, to bring into context, are so good that I couldn't leave them out without getting to 1 Peter 5:8. So, I have a deal for you. These 2 verses are for free. If you don't like what I'm saying, just throw it out. But I thought it was too good to leave it out, and so hopefully you'll take it in, but these are for free. I'm going to charge you for verse 8. $10 at the door. No, I'm going to charge you your desire to spring clean with us. No, it's okay. We're a free church here. But 1 Peter 5 and 6, I'm just going to land on them and talk about them because it was so good. It's not necessarily directly connected to similes and what I'm doing, but I couldn't leave it. So 1 Peter 5:6, here we go. In the NASB, therefore humble yourself under the mighty hand of God so that he may exalt you at the proper time. There is so much in this. You may have heard this before many times from this pulpit and other people saying this. He says, therefore, humble yourself under. Look at somebody and say, under. If you're watching today online, why don't you let me know? Why don't you comment under? Let me know you're still watching. So he says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God so that he may exalt you in due time. Somebody say, over. Over. If you're watching online, why don't you put down over? Let me know that you're here. See, in order to be over someone or something, you must first be willing to be under someone or something. That's not funny, but I guess it is. Okay? In order to be over someone or something, you first must be willing to be under. So be humble. Humble yourself what? Under. Under comes first, so that what? He may exalt you, put you over in the proper time. So exaltation, he says exalt, elevation, promotion without humility, without learning humility, being able to be humble, exaltation, elevation, promotion, success without humility often ends up in tragedy. Yes, they feel my pain with that statement. Oh, yes, it's true. So without humility often ends up in tragedy. It ends up in scandal. It ends up in moral failure. Maybe somebody gets addicted to coping substances because they're not ready for that. Maybe there's a burnout. Maybe there's ruin or bankruptcy. Without humility, when you get to the place, if you haven't been able, and we've been talking like this, if you haven't learned humility, then it can end up in a tragedy. And humility is only learned, like Pastor Jim said last week, and I've been talking about, humility is learned through servanthood and grit. Servanthood and grit. And there's two things I want you to know about this when this verse that are important. It says two things. Number one, God will exalt. And number two, at the proper time. God will exalt and at the proper time. Why is this important that there's a proper time and there's a place for this? Because humility has to be learned. It has to be worked out. It has to be discovered and worked out and honed in your life so that you can handle the exaltation. You have to be able to learn how to operate in humility so when the exaltation, the success, the promotion comes, you're able to handle it. And here's the reality. Humility is honed in seasons, not seconds. That's something you could write down if you're taking notes. Humility is honed over seasons, not seconds. See, I think sometimes we get humility and humiliation mixed up. See, humiliation comes in seconds, in moments. Humility is learnt over time, and you learn humility so you don't have to deal with humiliation. Because if you don't learn it when no one else is looking, then when you get there and something happens in a moment, it can ruin everything. So you do the humility, you do the servanthood, you do the grit so that when you get to a place, and now with social media, man, everything's out there. You say, we know a story of a friend, one wrong word and they're done. And I'm not saying there wasn't humility, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be ready for these things. It's honed over seasons, not seconds. You don't learn how to be humble quickly, you learn how to be humble consistently. The small, consistent, daily. We have been talking about that in the past seasons. The grit. And see, if you don't take the time to learn humility now, you'll take time to pay the price of humiliation later. This is for free, guys. I just couldn't leave it. It was good stuff. But if you don't take time to learn humility now, that's why you're saying, Pastor Derek, why are you getting us to do spring cleaning? Pastor Derek, why are we doing all this Engage? Pastor Derek, why are we doing Find the Fit? Because I want you to learn humility. I want you to learn servanthood. I want you to learn about the grit so when God promotes you, you are able to handle it. You're ready to do it. The success won't get to your head, and you'll be able to sustain that. We've seen far too many leaders and Christian leaders, things happen because they didn't learn the price when it wasn't as costly. And it starts with humility. Amen? Amen? 1 Peter 5:7. We're done that verse. So if that was stepping on your toes, we're good. Next verse for free. Thank you, Jerry Westcoop, for putting over. Sydney's putting over. Geraldine over. Farah over. Under. Man, we got some people watching. Thank you. Verse 7. Having cast all your anxiety on him because he cares about you. See, I usually read this verse in isolation. Hey, if you have anxieties, if you have stress, if you have worries, cast it onto Jesus because he cares for you, which is true. But guess what the context this verse is coming out of? The previous verse, which is talking about humility. Whew. See, I think when we get anxious and worried and stressed about something, honestly, when I do, we really are saying, God, what you did through Jesus on the cross, I'm not sure I trust it. Are we not? This problem you didn't prepare for, God, with Jesus. That wasn't answered. This thing is bigger. It's almost from a place of pride of like, man, because that verse says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. And when we get a thing that's too big, we say, God, we can't put this under you. We have to trust ourselves, and we try to do some other things, right? We try to exalt our solution over just saying, God, we trust in you. God, we give this to you. I humble myself under you. This thing I'm going through, I humble it, I put it and submit it to you. And so anxiety rises when we don't find a place to be able to say, God, this is yours. And maybe we don't fully trust that God cares or knows, and that could be for a variety of reasons. But it says, cast all your anxiety on him, who? Jesus, because he cares about you. See, when we become anxious about something, I think it's because we're not willing to cast the care onto Jesus and humble it under him. It's too big. No, it's not. Our issue is not bigger than Jesus. And here's what I say. Anxiety is a sign we are exalting our issues above the hand of God instead of casting our issues under the hand of God. I'm throwing a lot at you, but it was just too good to leave. These are for free. Anxiety is a sign we are exalting our issues above the hand of God instead of casting our issues under the hand of God. Now, I will say this, sometimes, most times, oftentimes, this is easier said than done. I'm trusting, working this process is a lot harder, but ultimately, if we are anxious about something, it's because we are not willing or understanding or haven't fully developed to the place where we can just submit it to God. Okay. So casting your anxiety has to do with humility. And so if we're being honest with ourselves, when we become anxious, we begin to exalt wrong things in our lives in an attempt to ease our anxiety. Has anyone ever tried to come up with a solution to something you couldn't figure out and you weren't quite sure God was going to handle? And so you came up with your own solution to ease your anxiety, and oftentimes it creates more anxiety? So, we are anxious about a financial situation, these bills, and so I take a higher paying job no matter the cost of family, no matter the cost of the time, no matter the cost of the church that God's called you to. You take the higher paying job and you exalt the job to a high position, but it relieves your anxiety for a bit. Because you're not sure that you can humble that situation under the mighty hand of God and trust in Him for that. How about this? We see this is at a very base level, right? People are anxious about the economy, and they can't give it to God, and they're worried, and so the solution is they buy all the toilet paper. That was a solution to an apocalyptic world. What will save us from apocalypse? Make sure you have enough TP so your butt stays clean. I don't understand why there was a shortage, because if there's an apocalypse, there's other ways you can find to clean yourself besides toilet paper. I think food might be something more important. But you exalt weird things when you're worried and anxious and you don't feel like you give it to God. And toilet paper shortage. Everyone buy toilet paper. How many of you still have toilet paper from when you bought it like 12 months ago? Don't put your hand up. You ran out finally, Mom? No, just... It is true, though. She talked about this. Sorry, this is off, but you're at Costco and you're like just minding your business, and then you look and you're like, they got 4 rolls of toilet paper. They have 3 rolls, and then you're like, am I missing something? I better get toilet paper, like that's kind of that. Yeah, we humans are weird. You're anxious about kids' behavior, so you yell at them in hopes that they'll listen. You elevate a different response. You're anxious in your marriage, so you start making sharp comments to the spouse or underhanded comments in hopes that it's going to change them. Because we don't actually think God can take care of it, we become anxious about it and do and say things we know we shouldn't. So here's the question that really challenged me as I was going through this, and I'm like, man, if I could do this, if I could learn this better, oh my goodness, it would change my life. But here's one. If I asked myself this in every situation, how would humility respond to this situation? Gosh. That post you want to put, how would humility respond? That thing you want to say, that unforgiveness you want to have, how would humility respond in this situation? Humility to who? It says, humble yourself where? Under the mighty hand of God. To God's purpose, God's will. You know what God's mighty hand is? I put this, His control and His provision. Humble yourself under God's control and provision. What would humility respond to this? What would my response be if I understood God was in control and God was going to provide? Come on, this is good preaching. What would it look like if you went, God is in control and God will provide? What would our response be if we were humbling under that position? That's for free, guys. Free. Everyone say free. All right, we're done that. 1 Peter 5:8. Here's the verse. We're now back on track. Thank you for allowing me that rabbit trail. Again, if you didn't like it, throw it out. If there's some pieces you wanted, keep it. 1 Peter 5:8. Be of sober spirit. See, Pastor Jim talked about sober last week, Right? And I was like very impressed that he left out the ESOBR. I better add the R there, or that sounds pretty nasty. I can't just say SOB because that means something totally different. SOBR. And it stood for, what did you do for yourself? What did you do for others? What did you do for both? And what was your responsibility to do? That was great. That's up on our website if you want to do that. But just every week or every day kind of go, what am I doing for others? That was his thing. But it says, be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil. Ooh, right? Prowls around. Here it is. Like a roaring lion. Like a roaring lion. Notice it doesn't say prowls around. It is a lion. Like the lion prowls around. Peter puts around like a roaring lion. And I think oftentimes we forget that word like there. Prowls around like a roaring lion. That word devil is diabolos. I just wanted to put that in the Greek because it means this: prone to slander, accusing falsely. It's what Satan does. It's what the enemy does. Accuser of the people, the brethren. A person who makes personal attacks upon others. So this enemy, not necessarily the devil, but if it comes in other forms as someone making accusations, telling you, hey, you're not enough. You've had too much of a past. Your sin is too much overcome. Man, you keep messing up. Man, you did this. And so all of that comes to accuse, and that's what the enemy or the adversary wants to do. And it goes around like a lion going, roar, and trying to make a lot of noise in your life. Roar. And so we can't just rush on by the fact that scripture has the word like, and so Peter is using a simile. See, the devil goes around like a roaring lion, but the devil is not a lion. And he seeks, listen, it says he seeks whom he may devour. It doesn't say he actually has the power or authority to do it. He's just trying to go around pretending that he can devour. And he's going to use words. Up here, something someone else says, and he's going to try to get it into you, and it's going to try to make it so that it starts as like a meow, 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 and you're like, it's a lion. This is going to ruin me. This is good, and wants you to think that it's a lion. So this is how he's like a lion, because he tries to convince people he's capable of devouring. Remember that teacher that said to you, roar. Remember that parent that doesn't care for you, roar. Remember that person that thought this about you, roar. Remember the fact that you're struggling with your thoughts and depression, roar. Remember that shame of that, roar. You're never, roar, right? The devil will try to do it through accusation, through telling you false things, through shame, roar, through telling you aren't enough, roar, through telling you aren't a good mom, roar, a good wife, roar, a good husband, roar, a good friend, roar, telling you aren't going to make it. The accuser wants to make the sound so loud that you think there's something more behind it than the noise it is making, and by making all the noise wants to convince you that is so much more than just a simile. Roar. Roar. So here are some similes you might have heard. Things like, your debt is like an anchor in the ocean. Your sin is like a backpack full of weight. Your past is like a chain of bondage. Your mind is like a ball of stress. Your health is like a fleeting moment. Roar. Roar. That bill, roar, it roars. That report you got from the doctor, roar, it's roaring. That mind is struggling through COVID and loneliness and depression and the things that you're dealing with. It's trying to roar loud to make you think it's going to end you and it's going to devour you. But listen, your debt may be like an anchor. But David said, I was young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. God's blessing is an anchor breaker. Listen, your sin may be like a backpack full of weight, but Jesus said, come to me all who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Your past can seem like a chain of bondage, but if you turn to Christ, all things have passed away. behold, all things have become new. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free. Your mind might be like a big ball of stress, but Isaiah let us know that God keeps us in perfect peace, whose minds are stayed on him. Your health may be like a fleeting moment, but Matthew tells us in an account when he says this, that great crowds came to Jesus, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and Jesus healed them all. You got to remember this, church. When the noise is going, when the lion is roaring, just because it is a simile does not make it your reality. Whew. It's like it is does not mean it is. Just because it is a simile does not make it your reality. Whew. I got a story, and then I'm done. Gotta catch my breath. Whew. Come on, someone needed to hear that today. Some of you have been listening to the similes, and you've forgotten about the word like. That's an important word. Don't miss the like. Don't forget about the like. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, don't forget about the like. Come on, if you're watching today still, why don't you let me know? Say, Pastor Derek, don't forget about the like. If you're on YouTube, Becca will respond to you on YouTube. I'm looking at Facebook here, but don't forget about the like. Let me know you're still with us today. Sometimes we forget about the like. So here's my story. This is what sparked all this. I had my kids at the park. W.P. Bates Park. Shout out to W.P. Bates. I thought Josiah and Matt and Crystal would be a little more excited. We hang out there all the time. Kenzie. W.P. Bates Park, Kenzie? She's like, what? I wasn't listening. She shrunk, yeah. So like, this is what? The Bible? That's when you say that and you're probably good. So we were walking back from W.P. Bates. Aylin was almost a block ahead of us. She walked faster. Che was about a half a block. It's about 2 blocks. We walked by Matt's house, and then it's our block. And then I was with DeRory. So Aylin was up there, and I don't remember quite what happened with her. But as we got closer past Matt's house, when we were on the last block, you could hear this dog barking up ahead. Again, I'm not sure how that's funny, but it's sad, no. A dog barking. And so, as a parent, you kind of hear it, and I'm no dog whisperer. Maybe you have dogs, you understand dog language a bit better than me. All barks sound similar, right? And whether they're being playful and just trying to assert fun dominance or actually angry and not happy dogs, this dog sounded like it wanted to get somebody. Right. And so I'm about half a block Che is up, and I'm watching her, and as a parent, I'm like, okay, I'm on alert. Am I about to have to sprint down, and I don't know where this dog is barking from, and I don't know. And so I'm watching Che. She's about a half block ahead, and so I knew it was right where she was, and as she got closer, she started going like this and getting a little slower. And you could hear this dog. It sounded like it wanted, well, to me, and to her probably, it sounded like it wanted to attack it, like it wanted to go after, wanted to do something, wanted to devour, wanted to bite into her. And so she was getting very tentative and worried as the barking got louder and more intense. And so I was watching her. She was about a half block ahead, and she was doing this and got slower, and then I saw her do this, and she looked over, paused for a second, and then I saw her straighten up like this, do a little skip, and walk confidently on by. And so we were half a block away with Dory and I, and so we came up and same thing. And I'm like, man, even for me, I'm like, that sounds like this dog wants to get us. It's barking like it wants to destroy us. It's barking like it wants to hurt us and bite us. And so anyways, the same experience. There was a van kind of in front, and it was getting louder and louder. And so you walk, and I go like this, and I look, and then in that moment, I realized what happened with Chea. Because there was the dog barking like it wanted to hurt me, like it wanted to hurt Chea, like it wanted to hurt DeRory, and it was going after and making all this noise, and it was making me a little nervous for Chea. I could tell Chea was nervous and tentative, but when we both looked around the corner, we realized something that was very important, that no matter how hard that dog was barking, no matter how much noise it was trying to make, no matter what it really wanted, we noticed this: the dog was on a leash. The dog was on a leash, and even though it was barking like it wanted to do something, the dog was not able to do something because the dog was on a leash. See, listen. There's been a lot of noise over the last few years, from COVID, from governments to wars. Some of you may be facing things you never thought you'd have to face. Maybe in your relationships, there's some barking going on, and you can hear it, and there's some pressure there. Maybe in your minds, and it feels like something's going after you, like it wants to destroy you, like it wants to take your joy, like it wants to take your business, like it wants to take your hope, like it wants to take your health. In your finances, in your business, in your health, in your emotions, maybe loneliness, you've been struggling with that, emptiness, building depression inside of you. You may be feeling like you're overwhelmed, fearful, worried, and tentative, like Chea was walking up. But I need to tell you what I saw and what Isaiah saw is this: when the enemy comes in like a flood, in Isaiah 59:19, when the enemy comes in like a flood, listen, when the problem comes in like a flood, when the bills come in like a flood, that depression comes in like a flood, when the anger rises up like a flood, when that relationship collapses like a flood, when the enemy is coming at you like a flood, Isaiah says this: the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. I had a better response to my own preaching when I was practicing than what you guys did here. I was like, whoa, yeah, come on. Duh. You're still putting it together. I've had time to sit in it. When the enemy comes in, what? Like a flood. That's a simile. But when it looks like it is, when the dog is barking and you're not sure, Isaiah said the Spirit of the Lord will raise up a standard against him. See, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against anything you are facing. Someone needs to hear this morning. There's some new standards being set out. That's not in my notes. There's some new standards being set out for that situation where the lion's been roaring and the dog's been barking and it feels like it's like something, but there's a new standard. God's raising up a standard against that situation. See, I don't care how loud the noise is getting. I don't care how loud the lion is roaring. I don't care how menacing the dog is barking. God has already lifted up a standard against what you are facing. That dog is on a leash. It has no power. It has no authority. It is just a like. That dog that you are facing is nothing but a simile, because the God that you are following is nothing but reality. Come on. I got my preach outfit on today. Gonna do the top button. Music team, come on up. That dog that you are facing is nothing but a simile, because the God that you are following is nothing but reality. Someone get this in their hearts this morning. Where's Jenny? Let's do break every chain. I'm telling everyone right now, E minor, C, G, D. Hope Jen can hear. I feel God in this place. That dog, I'm just going to keep that you've been facing, that barking that's been going on, that noise that's been bombarding your mind is nothing but a simile, because the God that you are following, if you're following, is nothing but reality. God sets the standard. Are we willing to humble ourselves, humble that situation under the mighty hand of God, under the control and provision of God, under the blessing of God, under the power of God, under the authority of God? God will lift up a standard. God will protect. God will bless. Oh, come on. God will bless reality. God will heal reality. God will restore reality. God will hold you reality. God will lift up a guard against whatever is trying to come in and drown you. That's reality. What is roaring in your mind, what is barking in your ear, that's simile. Whatever is stressing you out, that's simile. Whatever seems impossible, that's simile. Whatever looks improbable, that's a simile, because God has that on a leash. The enemy is a simile. God's standard is the reality. I really did lose Jen. I'm going to get me over to the piano here in a second. And so some of you have been sitting, and instead of saying, life is like a box of chocolates, you've been saying, life is a box of chocolates. Instead of saying something is like this, my life, my relationship feels like it's over, like a dead weight. You've been saying, it is. These bills are too much. Hold on, side, not quite yet. These bills are too much. This is this. You've been putting some is's and been forgetting about the likes. Some of you have been forgetting about, I'm here to tell you today, don't forget about the like. It's like a box of chocolates, which creates some instability, but it is not a box of chocolates. That is just a simile. God has a different reality. In a few weeks, I'm going to tell you how we have God's reality. You probably know it, but there's a chocolate cheat code, right? So in a few weeks, I'm probably going to do at least a part 2. It always moves into more. E minor CGD, did you hear that? For Break Every Chain? No, that's what I want to do. Don't forget the like. Here's what I want you to do. The challenge for this week. When you're facing something, when you're hearing the noise, when you're getting the things in your mind and it's being bombarded, and the accuser may be going after you, telling you all sorts of things. Find a bench, find a seat, grab some chocolates. I'm speaking Maury's love language here and Bob's. They're like, I'm in. And remind yourself that it's just a like. How about this also? How many of you are on social media? Do you ever like someone's post? Every time you like someone's post, remind yourself to not forget about the like. If you're feeling overwhelmed, this week the challenge is take some time and don't forget about the like. And when you're facing these things and when you're going through this, I want you to remember it's a simile and ask yourself this question. What is God's reality for this simile? That's the key. What is God's reality? So when you want to get mad at your kids, go, what is God's reality? When that thing looks too much, what is God's reality? When this thing's happening, what is God's reality? Are you willing to submit it under the reality of God's mighty hand? And when we do that, not only does God take care of it, but it opens up places of exaltation, promotion, freedom, living life to the full. What is God's reality? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're just going to quickly say, I believe there's just some, we're going to sing God's like, there's power in the name of Jesus to break every chain. Because I know there's some mentalities that have to be broken in order to see it this way, especially if you've been in the trenches for a while with what you've been believing for. You come up, oh, it's easy, Pastor Derek, you're saying that. I get it. It can seem difficult, so I'm just reigniting faith again. And we're going to sing over it saying there's power in the name of Jesus to break every chain. To help you see it differently, to go, this is just a simile. We'll sing that, and then we'll sing, I hear the chains falling. Just those two things. There's power in the name of Jesus, and I hear the chains falling. Because I believe there's going to be some things in people's minds breaking today. I believe there's some things over your finances that are going to be broken today. I believe there's going to be things over health that are going to be broken today. I believe there's going to be generational curses broken today. Things that have been on families for generation and generation. God is saying, it's been a simile, but it's time you step into my reality. Whew. Come on, Jen.